Welcome back to Sway TV. I'm your host JJ here on Amazon Live, and I'm so excited!
We're gonna have some fun on the street.
And we love Amazon Live, and we're so excited to be part of Sway TV.
Get curious! Get curious!
Look what my little mama gets to ride.
What do we do here on Sway TV? We shop.
Yo, suit up! Inhale. I literally just inhaled a fly.
The most hilarious thing that has ever happened to me on live Amazon television.
Would you like to be Sway TV host?
Yes! Here we go. So many giveaways here at Sway TV. I'm ready to battle shop live! Yeah!
This is fun.
And one person's gonna win a PS5. Which one will it be?
Everyone is holding their breath.
I have our winner.
I'm so excited, I can't even stand it.
I cannot make this up.
We are awarding you with the PS5 as well.
6, 5, 4, 3,
2, 1.
Talk to all your friends and your family. Let them know about Sway TV.
Thank you for being part of our community here at Sway.
Sway TV is here to stay. Thank you, Amazon.
Thank you, Sway TV.
Shop attainment all the time.
We in the house, we having fun, we doing the thing, we swaying.
Here we go for you!
Let's sway.
Let's sway.
Let's sway.
Let's sway.
Let's sway!
Let's sway.
Let's sway!
Let's sway.
Let's sway. Let's sway. Let's sway.
Let's go, let's sway, stay tuned! Woo!
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Sway TV. I'm Candace Kita. I'm your host, and I'm coming to you live. That's right, I'm coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles. It is 7:25 in the morning here on Wednesday, on Hump Day, and because I'm coming to you live, please leave me a comment, a suggestion. We love suggestions, or even a question in the chat. Thank you so much for everybody joining. I see some active chat right now. Diego, thank you so much. Albert, thank you so much for coming back, you guys. Now, today we have a very, very special guest. I'm going to introduce you to him. You have seen him on film. You have seen him on television. You've seen so many projects that he's been in. All of these are A-list projects that are available right now, currently on Amazon. You can get them on DVDs, you can get them in box sets, in Blu-ray, and you can also, of course, watch them always on Amazon Prime. So without further ado, I would like to introduce everybody to actor James Dumont. James, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. That's two varies. That's a very, very lovely welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Sway TV. Now, you're not even in Los Angeles. Where are you coming in? Where are you beaming in from today?
I am from sunny, beautiful, soon-to-be humidity-ridden New Orleans, Louisiana. That is my current home.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, and has been for the last 6 years. And I still, I have a place in Los Angeles and an apartment in Queens in New York. So tri-coastal is what I used to say, but now I'm Bayou tri-coastal. How about that?
Bayou tri-coastal.
Bayou tri-coastal. I used to say I'm Bayou coastal because it used to be Louisiana and Los Angeles, but now I'm back with my apartment post COVID, and so yes, Bayou tri-coastal. When people say where are you based, I go in the cloud. Silly, I'm wherever you need for me to be. They have the thing called planes, and I'm fully vaccinated, so we're good to go.
Oh, that is awesome. Now, where are you originally from? New Orleans, and that's why you're there in addition to Los Angeles and New York?
No, I'm originally from Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago and New York, but I split my parents between New York and Chicago when growing up. And then at a certain point, I moved to Los Angeles for about 20 years. And then I came out here to do the movie Deepwater Horizon. About 6 years ago, Peter Berg handpicked me out for a pretty large role for the run of the picture on Deepwater Horizon. So, and then I said, let's see if my kids can get into some really good schools here. And one was starting high school and the other one was starting middle school, and they got into the best schools in New Orleans. And I was like, I think I'm going to try to not go back to Los Angeles. So I only go back for work. I still have a place there, but my home has been in New Orleans for the last 6 years. So.
Wow, that's amazing. Because
Yeah.
you are such a prolific actor. If you guys check him out on IMDb, you will see how many huge projects that he has been in. So how did you get started in acting? Did you just that was the first thing you wanted to do,
Well,
or you actually went to school?
Looking at my lovely little smiling little cherubic face, I was the Gerber baby. I was actually on the little Gerber bottles when I was a little kid.
No
When I was a baby, I was like, yeah, back in many years ago. They did a sketch of my face, and it was on the Gerber. That was the first kind of like launch into things. And then in Chicago, McDonald's was like started in Chicago, so it's like there were McDonald's commercials, and there were Sears, which was another Chicago brand that was there. And so I just kind of started doing commercials. Then I kind of like I went to a performing arts high school called Whitney Young High School, which is where Michelle Obama graduated from. She was the year ahead of me. 2 years ahead? Yeah, she was 2 years ahead. And from Whitney Young, I started to perform. I started to work in, I got my SAG card. I did a lot of theater. And I got my SAG card in 1980 for the movie Blues Brothers. I was one of the kids kind of dancing in the street. I started up on the train platform, but then one of the kids had to go to school, didn't realize it was going to be a long day. So I said, anybody know how to dance? I was like, I know how to dance. And so they brought me from the train platform down front. And I was just for one part of the section, I just did a whole little dance. Twist and shake, shake, shake it. Here we go.
Shake your tail
Shake it up, baby.
Who guys remembers?
Oh, twist and shake, shake. So yeah.
Shake it.
So that was my at that point in time I was a must join of the Screen Actors Guild, and that was in that was a while ago. Anybody can look it up. It was 1980. So I'm 40 years in the business, it's exciting. So then from there I did first speaking role was the movie Class with Andrew McCarthy and Rob Lowe. And then I went off to college to Boston University and was there for a couple of years. And then I went to New York. I was really kind of ready to work. The college was fantastic, but I just was ready to go work. So I went to New York and moved to New York when I was 20. And stayed there for about 7 years. Worked my way up from doing everything I possibly did. I had a DJ business. I DJ'd at all the clubs to make money. And then I got a show, 6 Degrees of Separation on Broadway. And then it was doing a national tour that was going to start in Los Angeles. So after doing many TV pilots and going back and forth from New York and LA, that none of them went anywhere. I finally decided to go with the tour, and was on tour for 9 months, then moved back to Los Angeles and went there for like 20 years. And then about 12 years ago, I started, after Katrina, the tax credits, they started doing tax credits in Louisiana. And that's when I started to, look into film work here, because California was kind of going through a really tough time with the Writers Guild strike, and SAG and AFTRA were talking about, they separated the earnings. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my insurance for my kids. So I was like, my focus is film. So about 12 years ago, I started working down in Louisiana, and now I'm about 150 film and television. A lot of stuff is not on IMDb right now because I can't talk about it, but there's a lot of things I can talk about. So that's pretty much how it started. I gave you a quick trajectory from Chicago all the way to New Orleans.
I know. It's like, I actually think you're over 150 on IMDb. Like, I was like, there's so much stuff to pull from. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And we have a lot of chat already. Jimmy D, exclamation point, NOLA, the Windy City Dream on HBO. You guys, thank you so much for that. We are going to be talking about all these projects that James has been in. There's so many. Like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're starting all the way from the Gerber baby. Like, I didn't even know.
We started with Blues Brothers. We're like, there's so much in between.
I know. No, I don't know. So you didn't go to school for this. Did you, when you were in Los Angeles, did you take courses? Like, what courses? If somebody was going to start.
No, I did. I mean, I was a theater major at BU. At BU, I was a theater major for 2 years. And then when I went to New York, I studied with people that had studied with at the neighborhood playhouse for Sanford Meisner. So, I mean, I learned, but I was really part of a theater company called Ensemble Studio Theater, back when I was 20. And I I just constantly studied, actually, and I did everything I possibly could do. I did every student film. I did every independent film. I did a film that won at Sundance that year, a movie called Combination Platter, where the kids' parents had, mortgaged their family's Chinese restaurant to make the movie. And we won the audience award at Sundance and the, screenwriting award. So, I mean, like there wasn't, in the beginning, I used to say I was so desperate I would show up to the opening of an envelope, and it's true. And it's true. I was just really hungry to kind of learn. And so I was constantly in 2-3 classes all the time. I did a little catering, but I had a really nice, successful DJ business. But it's kind of hard to kind of, do a commercial audition at 10 in the morning when you DJ till 6. So but you're young and you're running on 4 hours and you were having a great, you're living a great life in New York City.
Absolutely. What do you think is the difference? Because you had mentioned being on Broadway. What do you think is the difference between acting on Broadway and acting in film in Los Angeles? I see them as two completely different things.
Oh, they're two. Yeah, they are. They are, but they have like a different kind of just focus. Lately I've been teaching on Zoom and teaching people how to work on camera, especially now that everything's being self-tapes. People are not going in for auditions anymore live. They're doing them in their homes on their computers, and I have a studio here in my home. And so it's interesting. I always say that, the difference of theater is, your performance and things are this wide and this, possible. But then when you're doing film and television, you bring all of those things, but into this box, this frame. So it's a matter of kind of taking all of that clarity and specificity and humanity, and rather than it being out for the entire theater, you just bring it intimate into 1 to 2 people. So, it's a different kind of focus and discipline. Broadway is a fine-tuned machine. We did 8 shows a week. I did it for 2.5 years.
Wow.
I got to the theater at 7:30. We did the show at 8. I had one scene. I was going from 8 to 8:05 to 8:10. 9:30 was curtain call. Boom, we're done. We do that 8 times a week. I worked 40 minutes a day. So 40 minutes a week. It was ridiculous. But the point is Broadway is a different, it's a different animal in terms of it's live. Anything can happen. I think one time a person had a heart attack in the back row of the theater. Oh my goodness! And we kept going because we're in our world, and what's happening in the back of the theater doesn't exist for us on stage. So they're attending to this person, taking them out while the show must go on. We just kept going while someone was dying of a heart attack. So it was, that is one big difference because, when you're doing, film, there's someone says cut and we're done, or a police siren, or somebody set something off, or somebody didn't turn their walkie off, you can stop and start it all again. But once you're, I always say what's exciting to me, and the same thing now for doing so much film, is once you kind of break the footlights, you're in that world and you're in that reality, and you have to stay in that reality. And same thing happens now for me. It's like once the camera starts to roll, there's this same kind of sense of intimacy and same kind of unknown. I call it, no man's land. Who knows what's going to happen between you and I and the lens? Who knows what's going to happen between you and the audience? So and then with live theater, that moment can never be duplicated again the exact same way. But tomorrow night, we're going to do the exact same words. We're going to have we're going to do it all over again. So there's that sense of, that's what's one of the most amazing thing that I think we're missing with live theaters, is that moment in time can never be replicated exactly the same, as opposed to film where things are being captured, and they'll always be that, or you can always catch that, or it can be done different ways. Especially now when I'm doing self-tapes, it's like I constantly would send somebody 2 totally different reads on a kind of character.
Do you think that, because I've talked to lots of casting directors recently, do you think that self-tapes are going to continue to be the norm now?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I believe live will probably come down to chemistry reads and callbacks. I don't see the necessity for a first round of live auditions because as one of my friends is a huge casting director for billions of dollars worth of film, she had said, when we were doing live, we could get 35, 40 people in a day. Now I can see 300.
Wow.
So it gives 260 people more of an opportunity, or it gives her more choices that she can kind of choose from. So I feel like, and also just the economics and the environmental impact of it. It used to be really silly to me that and it's still in Los Angeles for NCIS, for example, they would have 12 people in the room, and that person drove up from Orange County. That person, lived in Hollywood. So you have 12 cars that you put on the road for all of us to meet in one room for a 2 to 3 hour period of time, and then you have 30 or 40 actors that are coming in. So you have you just put a whole bunch of cars on the road. And also now it can all be done very easily, through Zoom for a callback or the self-tape. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think it's changing. What's been happening now, casting directors are being able to give notes or adjustments as if they are in the room. I've done I've done a Zoom live audition. I've done a Zoom callbacks. So it's almost as virtually as if you're there, but there's no, it's a very good use of economy, the economics of it. For me, even in New York City, to get an Uber or to get into a train, and the time of it all just doesn't make sense. There was times where I'd fly out for an audition all the way to New Orleans.
What?
I would fly out for an audition.
From Los Angeles? Or
From
New
Los
York?
Angeles. From Los Angeles.
For an audition or a callback?
Oh yeah, for auditions and for callbacks. For certain roles that I had to show them that I was willing to show up. So I mean, for many years, at least for first year or two, I invested money to go. If you were going to bring me in, I'm going to show up live, so that you can give me the notes or adjustments. It was only recently one cast director was like, I never knew that you lived in Los Angeles the whole time because you just constantly would show up. And I go, well, for you in this project, I will.
So
and
you
I
would
did.
hop on the plane in the morning.
Yeah, I've had ones where I've literally, I had a callback for they were redoing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like 3D Leatherface or whatever. It was like some new, and it was like this great large role of a sheriff. I got on a plane, I flew to Dallas, I rented a car, I drove to Shreveport, I stayed at my sister-in-law's house.
No.
I did the audition. It took me an hour for my callback. I got back stayed overnight. I got back in a car. I got on a plane, flew back to LA, and then my friend in LA said, "Oh yeah, I just booked this role of the sheriff." And I was like, and so no deposit, no return. You have to invest, in things. And I had a kind of a 3-year plan of working the South, which was year 1, I was just going to invest in showing up and just go, this is what I'm going to do. And year 2, I have to kind of break even. And by year 3, I was doing very well. Year 3 and 4, I did very, very well. I booked, like 20 projects in a year. And so,
unbelievable.
Yeah. So you just, there are people who drive, 3, 4, 5 hours in the old days. So that's why self-taping really, it helps and saves a lot of people from being on the road and potential risk of that and being on planes and all that stuff. So I just think that it just makes sense. It makes sense. And now it was like, it kind of forced the hand. New York was the last holdout of live auditions. New York was like, we have to have live. You have to be here. Certain shows said you have to be in this room. Now that cast director's done everything virtually. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to go back. I think it's good to go back in terms of a callback or trying to find the right kind of chemistry mix. I like it auditions to, I'm actually taking the word auditions out of my vocabulary, and competition, and really kind of calling them exhibitions.
How interesting.
I'm an artist and I'm exhibiting my work, because the audition has all this other negative connotations that have nothing to do with my creativity. So I focus on, I'm creating a 2 to 3 minute a cinematic work of art based on the information that you gave me, the given circumstances, much like a 24-hour or 48-hour film festival. I'm doing that to the best and honest ability I have, given what you've given me. I document it, I send it off to you. My work is done. All those other things, the cast director's a curator. That might be not right for this exhibit, but it'll be right for other exhibits, because they do other exhibits of various different things. So, and what that does is it keeps the actors' empowerment, as opposed to, if I didn't get the job, therefore what I did, my effort, my training is I was rejected. I was not, it's not rejection. Yeah, it's not rejection or selection. It's curation. But it is selection because they are selecting, does this piece of art, does this fit with this? And but I think my job, I've kind of trying to reframe things to just be focused on how can I do the most interesting, provocative, and compelling work in the given, like just before I clicked on, I have an audition for my agent in London. It's like I have till Friday to figure out who this person is and get all these words in my body and create this human being and document it and edit it and shoot it and send it off. And then my work, because I'm in the acting business, my work is done. I spend no time or energy, thinking about the end result. That's not my job. That's their job. They're in the curation, they're in the selection, they're in cue, they're in, it's a different animal. So as much as I think it's helpful sometimes for actors to listen to cast directors for their experience, they're in a different business than us. And I think when you start to try to change your art to what they need, that curator may not need the same thing another one does. So it sets up a whole neurotic and neuroses that doesn't serve you. So I say, I'm an actor, and now I've been, teaching for the last 5 years. If you want to be a working actor, you should learn from a working actor. Learn from the person that actually does that. And I'm a painter, I'm an artist. So once I kind of dip my brush in the water, once I've done my audition, I'm done. Next, I'm on to next. What's my next work of art? And it just came in my email box. So it's like, what's next? You know what I mean?
Well,
what's next and what's possible? Explain
to us, because you just brought up a really good point. You said, I had a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plan for the South. Explain to us the importance of the business aspect of show business, because it's not just being creative, it's this whole other thing that it sounds like to me you really, really have it down. How much of that is as important as the creativity, and how do you go about approaching it?
That's a very good question, because, I'm lucky for me, my dad and my family were, very good creative folks, but in some respects, very helpful business. My great uncle created Dumont Television. So the first television network was from my family, but he was a scientist, and he surrounded himself with business people where, again, you haven't heard about the network because the business people, he was not a very good businessman, but he was a wonderful scientist, helped invent the picture tube, actually.
Oh, wow.
And some of the early, surprisingly enough, some of the earliest pioneers of television shows. There was an Asian woman who had her own television show back in the 40s. First African-American woman had her own television show, a cooking show back in the 40s, 50s as well. So my point is that there were pioneers. So he had this great creativity, but on the business end, there were people that didn't really kind of handle the business well. So lucky for me, my father was a very good businessman and taught me a lot of great things. But I do think, I think what happens is people can be very, they can put the cart before the horse. Having many Instagram followers is fantastic, and getting many likes and being known. But what are you known for? It's always going to come down to the caliber and the quality of your work. So I feel like I think people's focus should really be invested in being the most well-trained and cultivate your talent. The business aspect, you'll draw people to you that will help you to handle the business aspects of things. Sometimes I'm a little too hands-on in the business stuff, and I've realized it doesn't really serve me. So luckily for me, I've stayed focused on the quality and the caliber of what I have to offer, my art. And so that has drawn certain people to me that will help benefit from me. They work on commission. I don't pay them a salary. They only get paid when I work. So there's people who are incentivized or enthused and excited about what I have to offer. What my part of my collaboration is. And so I think, unfortunately, I think there's a kind of, some of my younger students are really kind of focused on the business stuff and trying to be places and photographs. And I'm with these, if you take a photograph with a famous person, that's great, but that doesn't make you famous. It makes you a fan. And I usually don't, if you notice, I don't have a lot of photographs with me with all the people that I've worked with, because once you take a photograph when you're working with them, you move into fandom and not necessarily, you're not an equal. When you're working with them, you're 100% equal. And I've worked with a lot of Oscar, nominees, a lot of Oscar winners. When we're working together, we're on equal terms. It's only when they say cut and treat them differently than me that there's a difference. And when you take a photograph, you change the way in which that you are perceived. I want to, you know, I want to document that I'm with you, or show that to other people. Look, I'm with these people. You know, people used to say, oh, it's who you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you. And what do they know you for? Do they know you for the person who hangs around famous people or has lots of friends or likes on Instagram? Or they know you as a talent that has worked with some of the best actors on film and television? That's what do they know you for? And so I think the way in which you kind of build your business is, you know, I don't like the word brand, but I understand it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I were to say my brand is an everyman, that I can kind of do everything and represent every man. And if you look at the roles that I do represent people that are not the lead actors. I represent, you know, sometimes historical human beings. And so in that regard, I feel like, you know, the focus really should be take care of your art, take care of your craft, be well trained, know what your goals and dreams and aspirations are, set a plan. Like I did, I had a plan of how I was going to do this. It's turned out far greater than I thought, but you know, a dream without a plan is just a dream, and sometimes we forget our dreams, you know. So I feel like, you know, you have to have some sort of a business acumen. There's books that I like. I like the book Good to Great, which is a really fantastic book about understanding the difference between a good company and a great company. What's the difference between a good actor and a great actor? I think and there's just certain things that I kind of, like when I'm doing my on-camera workouts that I've been teaching on Zoom, I have core values. My core values are, you know, that we are a spirit of generosity of spirit. We're constantly looking out and helping one another. And we have 3 basic premises, which is, you know, craft, community, and confidence, our 3 C's. And so we focus on, so even for me, you know, what I'm doing is creative. There's a business acumen that has to come with it. But at the end of the day, there are core values. And I mean, there are things I will and will not do. I will not allow there's certain people, only 2 people have been, you know, booted out of my place because they're not a right fit. I have to protect the integrity of the people and the work that we do. It has to be a safe space in order for them to do the great work. And if that person's, you know, doesn't fit that particular, the way we're working, then I have to, you know, take them out of that mix. So we have so I think having a mission statement, you know, like I know my mission is to bring, you know, human beings to life and all their beauty and ugliness and everything else in between. That's my job. You know, I'm speaking for other human beings. I'm stepping into people's shoes. So beyond being famous or being known, my job is I'm in the human being business. I'm in creating human beings, documenting them to the most honest and truthful, you know, grounded and sincere way that I can, provocative, emotional. And then I step in, like, you know, I move like Shirley MacLaine talks about, then you kind of step into another world. You know, you know, like you know, it's like a transference. You know, I've become this person for a while, and then I just let them go and, you know, find another soul to inhabit. You know,
that's so interesting because, you know, you brought up a good point when you were saying to really understand who you are, and you said you're not necessarily a leading man, but you are more of a character actor. So do you think for your work, because you played,
I'm more of an everyman. You use the character actor term, you know, only because character. What's interesting about character actors, and I would consider myself one, but I kind of shy away from the idea because I feel like Sly Stallone is a character actor. He does one character. That's what he does. Vin Diesel is a character actor. He does one character.
John Wayne, it's one character. He's a character. Those are character actors. Even though they can be considered leads, they do one character, and we bank on that to do that. So I consider myself more like an everyman in the sense that, you know, I speak for the dad, the uncle, the husband, the doctor, the father, you know, the friend. And you can transmogrify. I mean, do you physically, like you said, you've played many historical. How do you physically change, and do you change your voice? Do you change your mannerisms?
Yeah, all those things. You know, like I'm a big fan of Robert Duvall's work, and also, you know, I have a really amazing teacher who you can find his book on Amazon, by the way. There's a teacher named Tim Phillips, had a book called Audition for Your Career, Not the Job, and it's on Amazon. And I strongly recommend any actor pick up that book. It's really for the 21st century actor in terms of really learning how to dissect and what he calls Sherlock Holmesing the text And then how that because that's your kind of foundation to kind of work from. How you can really build a character is the script is the first, is your first, it's your blueprint, it's your ground plan, and so Tim had worked with Robert Duvall, and Robert Duvall said, it's all characters on myself, just bent to the given circumstances of the material. And I feel the exact same way. I say now it's a self-tape. So why are you leaving yourself out of the audition?
Wow. So even if it's a villain, even if it's
there's a part of me,
character.
Absolutely. And I play a lot of despicable, unlikable characters, but what's great about it is that I can say and do these things vicariously through these characters I do. That's not how I live or talk to anybody ever. In fact, some people, like some younger folks recently just kind of messaged me like, you're such a you're a racist. It's character. This is not me. I need to bring, for example, Dallas Buyers Club. It's like, my scene with Jared Leto, he felt got him the Oscar. And I was like, I'm not going to argue with that. Because, here is my son who I basically abandoned, and because of, I think he's made a choice of, of his lifestyle choice. The fact that he's dying of AIDS is there was times in that scene where we would improv and I go, well, God's punishing you, for being gay. That's part of being punishment of being gay. And that was like an improv that happened that brought he and I to tears and a certain emotional plot. And then we would shoot another scene. We did 42 takes that day. And so, we said and did things to each other that, and then at the end, we're like, who are you? I was like, I'm James, I'm Jared. Finally, at the end, we never spoke to each other outside of character the whole time until the end.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. So my point is, you immerse yourself in the character, but, in that script had been written and shopped around for about 20 years. Brad Pitt was attached to it for a while. Many other people were. And the first line is, he's looking at photographs in the office, which, by the way, were actually pictures of my wife and daughter, and he's not part of this family. He's my father, but yet there's this new family that I have. And he goes, I guess I didn't make the cut. And I go, well, you made that choice yourself. It's not a choice, Dad. Within 3 lines,
wow,
you understand this entire relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a family that I'm not part of, that you've abandoned, and I didn't make the cut. I'm not part of that family. And I go, well, you made a choice to be transgender. You made a choice.
Wow.
And for that choice, there's a price for it. And AIDS just happened to be the price at that particular time.
How interesting.
And it's like, it's not a choice, Dad. And I'm like, what do you want? What do you want, Raymond? I mean, within 3-4 lines, years of relationship are kind of established. So, that's why I say is that, I come from the theater world where, writing the script is really the Bible. It's the blueprint. It's the map. It's the treasure map that you need to really kind of learn how to dissect. And so, that whole relationship, that whole character is built on those initial words. I always feel I'm only as good as the script. If the script is really kind of solid, I can really do certain things, but if it's challenging and not so good, I have to work really, really hard to manufacture truthfulness and honesty and how someone really speak.
Well,
you have this great look on your face, like, ooh.
Well, no, because I'm going to say that brings up a good point, because how often
Yeah.
do you feel like you have the opportunity or the luxury of going off script and getting to improv like you did with Jared Leto? How often does that happen to you? Because sometimes I think that's what the most compelling stuff comes out. For example, like
Absolutely.
Robin Williams, they used to
Yeah.
always do a clean one, a clean take,
Yep.
and then they'd let him go.
And I did that with him for The Butler. He and I was in one of his last films together. And once we kind of had it, Lee says, well, let's, Lee's like behind the monitor Lee Daniels is the director behind the monitor in pajamas, because he would take naps between takes, which I thought was the cutest thing in the world. And so, because it's hard being a director. It's like, hey, he's got to rest his mind, And so he would be behind the monitor and he goes, all right, well, let's do it again. And let's kind of improv one. And I froze. And he goes, James, you okay? And I go, yeah. I was like, I can't believe you're asking me to improv with Robin Williams. This is the greatest moment of my life. And he goes, well, let's go for it. I was like, all right, let's do it. And I came in and he's like, I didn't use the words in the script and then they end up using part of that, in the scene. So it's like, I can't believe I'm getting a chance to improv with Robin Williams, one of the greatest improvisational person ever. So yeah, it's improvisers ever. It was really, so yeah, there's moments like that. And I'm on a show right now called The Righteous Gemstones on HBO. We're starting our second season. Both my son and myself are on the show. My son plays Danny McBride's son and John Goodman's grandson. So he's already started his episode. I don't start till June. I do June to September. And with the way we do it with Gemstones is the master shot. The first shot is done as scripted. Then we get into the medium shot, and that's scripted. And then we may kind of improv a few lines. When we get to the close-up, that's playtime. That's where like we can say whatever we need to do for the close-up. And usually the director and the directors will kind of throw in, Danny or the director will throw in, or Danny could be the director sometimes. They'll throw in the greatest lines that you know, and then you have to keep a straight face, like through that line. You keep, and then as you're trying to keep, he's saying the things, the camera's on you, and you know you have to keep a straight face. And behind you is the entire crew, all going like this, like trying not to laugh. And then we call cut, and then everybody's laughing up a storm. So it's like we shoot as scripted. Then when we get to the mediums and the closes, that's when we start to improv, and it's totally changes. And lucky for me, I mean, there's really good writers on that show, but I like to, you know, I like to add stuff, you know, when it comes to, and I'm always happy, like when one of my improv, you know, lines comes in, you know, I got it for last season. I got one in, and everybody's like, oh, that's a great line. And I was like, oh, it'll be cut because these guys are good writers. But my line ended up getting in. So it's kind of fun.
Oh my gosh. I would especially imagine with Danny McBride too. I mean, that guy's absolutely
hilarious. You have to be on your toes.
Oh, good grief. So now, how did your son get a role too? Is your son also an actor? Because I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. He did the movie Logan, and he did a TV series called Astronaut Wives Club. And I auditioned and got the part first. I played Chad, which is one of Danny McBride's like right hand man. Is like we were called the Goon Squad last season. We have a new title this year, new title for our group. But we're like Danny's kind of right hand men. You know, we're like we kind of his posse. And then when I got booked, and then the role of Danny's son came up, and so I taped my son, and we came up with a really great button and improv at the end, which I thought was like sealed the deal for us. And then they flew us out to Charleston to meet with Danny wanted to meet with him because we wanted to make sure he was able to do improv and kind of stay in the moment. And I had already got the job at that point. So it was like, was all going to be kind of gravy for us. And so we went in, and, you know, he went in and met Danny and got to know each other. And then I came in the room, and I was like, Danny turned to my son. He's like, you ready for me to be your dad for the next 5 years? And my son's like, yeah, sure. Okay. He just didn't know. But yeah, he had gotten the role at that point, and we're on our season 2. And the way they're writing in season 2, we'll go another 3 years. So this may be the next 3 more years of my son's life. It's already been 2. So.
And how old is he?
He's 17. He'll be turning 18 in the fall. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
I know. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I was like, I kind of remind him every once in a while because, it's like, yeah, dude, you're pulling 4.0 at a very aggressively academic Jesuit school. And you're doing performing arts in the afternoon, and you're doing 7 out of 9 episodes, your second season of a TV show, and you're only 17. It's like, life is pretty good. Like, as hard as it may be, and it's challenging to keep up with the homework because it is when he's off. There is some help on school on set, but most of the work is waiting for him when he gets back, and so it's been extremely challenging. But I have to remind him, you got a pretty good kid.
Absolutely.
You're doing pretty well.
What do his friends think? I mean, hey, it's like you said, you're doing this.
Yeah,
and you happen to be on the show.
He's just like I'm a regular person. Like we kind of live a regular life. We sit down and have dinner and lunch together, just like any other. We just happen to be actors. So we kind of don't do that whole. I mean, I'm the only one that kind of goes off, and that's how you and I met through Al Ortega. Is like I fly in for the the Golden Globes or the Emmys or the Oscars, and when I'm out there working, I'm up for this thing works, and a couple things I'm working on are up for in LA. So, I'm the one that's kind of out there, kind of doing the meeting and greeting and getting on the carpet and working the room. But yeah, we kind of keep our life kind of normal. So I think his friends treat him kind of normal. He hates when they're like, you're famous, you're rich. And it's like, not TV, it's HBO. So, let's just clarify that real quick. But it is a wonderful experience for him. And we try to keep our lives as simple and normal as possible. So
does that help being
friends,
in New Orleans?
Yeah, it does, because I think in Los Angeles, I think it is a kind of a who's who, and how we go to people's houses. It's like, oh, my dad's an actor. Oh, my dad's a producer, and that's a Picasso on the wall. It's like,
yeah,
okay, well, there you go. There it is. My dad did Dallas Buyers Club, and we redid our bathroom. It's like, so there is a little bit of that, in the Buddhism world, we call that the world of animality. It's the laws of the jungle. There's always a bigger, better animal in the jungle that could easily, be predatory on you. So I feel like, that I like not being in that kind of environment. I didn't want my kids in that environment. And I saw a lot of people with kids in middle school and high school, and that's where my kids were kind of going. It's like getting into that, keeping up with the Joneses and the who has what and who's, I just don't think those are important. I mean, now with COVID, I think it's been I think COVID actually has had an amazing kind of impact on people kind of feeling equalized. You know what I mean? We're all in this together, as opposed to, every man for himself, which I think is very much of a LA thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You had mentioned Dallas Buyers Club. What do you think, and for those of you who have not seen it, it's available right here on Amazon. It's an amazing movie. Please check it out if you have the opportunity to.
Yeah, it's really strong.
Yeah, very, very strong. What do you think personally was your most compelling role?
I put that one there because I put that there just because it was hard to kind of step in the shoes of someone that's totally different than me in so many different ways. And it was very interesting how people's response to it when I was on the red carpet for it. There was a whole bunch of media that was covering, LGBTQ, and no one wanted to talk to me.
Really?
No one wanted to talk to me because I represented the father and or mother that abandons their children when they come out. And they thought that I was that real person. And only until Jennifer Gardner came like zooming down the carpet halfway down and go, oh my God, you're amazing. Who are you? You're amazing. And that scene is so, and she's like, starts to cry. She's like, that's the best scene in the movie for me. It's the most heartbreaking. You're incredible. You're amazing. And then all of a sudden, then everybody wanted to talk, because once Jennifer Gardner is like, oh my God, you're amazing. Like, then everybody wanted to talk to me. But it was interesting so I realized that that what I was representing was any parent that has basically abandoned their child, their flesh and blood because they were being gay. That's who I represented. That's who I spoke for. And that I felt was the most, and that's also like my 50th movie, 50, by the way, so I felt like that one was really kind of it was a career changer because it kind of, everybody in the industry saw it. So it was like, it kind of separated me from everyone else just for a little while, then I've gone back into the pool of a whole bunch of wonderful actors. But it was like, that was the one for me. And then I kind of followed it up with Trumbo, where I was the head of the House on Un-American Activity. Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? And that phrase was like the phrase of that whole time period, that awful time.
Sure.
And I went toe to toe with Cranston. He and I have been friends for years, and finally we're in a movie together, and we're just going at it, And then that led, after that there was like these three kind of big ones. It's like that, and then being the vice president of BP in Deepwater Horizon with Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg and John Malkovich. And Peter Berg and I built a solid relationship from that. Then I went on to Patriots Day. Then I'm in Spencer Confidential, which is my third film with Peter, where I have a really Tracksuit Charlie is the bad mafia, Boston mafia guy. So I mean, like I've from those three are kind of the ones that kind of have kind of put me in a good space. Then I have other ones like I have a new one coming up on Amazon, by the way. I'm in Underground Railroad, which is an 8-episode miniseries directed by Oscar winner director Barry Jenkins, who did If Beale Street Could Talk. He also is amazing. He was amazing. So that's coming up. That's actually coming up next month. So please, for you Amazon folks, that mini series, I guarantee you, will be a Emmy and Golden Globe winning series. It'll sweep. No one can touch the work that Barry Jenkins is doing right now. It's just quite remarkable. So that, and I'm just doing one episode, but the point is that, you know, I get lucky, and luck is a, you know, preparation and opportunity. I'm very fortunate to be in certain projects that I didn't realize would be as amazing as they are, you know.
Well, you mentioned relationships, and like you said, the director Peter Berg, that you've done projects with him over and over again. Do you think it's also because of who you are and building the relationships are vital in working as an actor in Hollywood? Because you build the relationships and people just ask you back because you're easy to get along with and easy to work with.
Easy to work with, easy to get along with. Peter and I have shorthand. Sometimes he doesn't even finish the sentence, and I kind of know where he wants to go. Or he'll look over me and he goes, "You want to do another one?" I was like, "Yeah." And so he knows that I have another idea about something, and rather than give me a note, he wants to see what I'm going to do at this other take. And then we may just move on. You know what I mean? So we never even really we're like, you know, we kind of simpatico, you know? So, and same thing with Mark, like Mark and I we have a kind of brotherly fun, you know, messing with each other. But he's also just probably the most intensely focused person I've ever met, intimidatingly so.
Really?
And that's been, and warm and gentle. But when it comes to being on set, no one is more present and focused on the work than he is. In my experience, this is 150 sets now. But I mean, I just, you know, admire him on and off camera for the work he does and the life he lives and the father he is and the actor he is and the producer. He's just, you know what I mean? If you're going to work on emulating somebody's career or look at someone there's my man. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a guy that, like, on and off camera really does the kind of things that I really admire and respect. And even on the producing end, you know, just not just being in it, but also finding, you know, Boardwalk Empire was amazing. Entourage was just like, you know, it's some people's first entry and understanding the business, which is my life and my career is the anti-entourage, the exact opposite of that. You know, like, no one's flying me anywhere. I'm flying myself, coach. I'm on Southwest. I'm fighting out those Spirit Airlines seats that don't really require, you know what I mean? I'm like, you know, so I've created a whole series based on the anti-entourage of my career, which I'm working on as we speak.
Oh, really?
Yeah, create my own pilot.
Oh, that is awesome. So how much do you think today in acting that it's that you've got to be proactive yourself? People always say that actors should create their own content, that's really important today. How do you feel about that?
I feel I encourage all of my students. I have about 400 students from as far away as Italy to San Francisco and Maine to Florida. And I'm constantly, on Monday nights, we do our writing labs where we create, people bringing in their own material that they want to kind of create short films or things that they're writing. I give them a writing assignment of which they can go off and create and shoot it. You know, I'm big on that. I think the thing is, I still think, you know, everyone thinks their life should be an or reality show or be interesting and provocative. The big question is there an audience? You know, who's watching this? Who would care beyond your immediate friends? Are there some? Right. Is there something human and universal that you are bringing to the table? Is there something unique? Is it a unique voice? I think, you know, unfortunately, I think there's a little bit of a narcissism, too much photographs of ourselves and too many capturing of moments and, you know, sending things off and feeling like that's being able to do that, or if people follow you, that's enough. I think that's, you know, it can be, but I think it's kind of short-sighted. I think you have to tell a story. In my show, it's called That Guy, you know, between somebody and nobody. It's that guy. And so even in each of our scenes, it may start off in a very kind of comical, dark, kind of karmic way, but in the middle of it, there's a real, truthful kind of human moment that's emotional and impactful. You start to see the human being beyond the, you know, the hilarity of the situation or the outrageousness or even the volatility of the situation. So there's always going to be what I call, you know, a human moment, a moment that anybody can kind of relate to. And I think when you're writing something, I think that's really an important key thing. You know, because rarely every story has already been told. You know, most of the stories in movies now are all based on, you know, you can look back at Shakespeare. It's like the basic formula of Game of Thrones ties back to every Shakespeare play that ever existed. So, I mean, but they told it in a different way, in a different time period, you know, or did they? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean? So I feel like if you are going to create kind of content, I think create something that's impactful, that's human, that's truthful, that's genuine, that we can all relate to, you know?
Do you think that big budget movies today with CGI and special effects are going away from the human moment? And do you think we're kind of taking a right-hand turn in the wrong direction? Do you think it needs to be brought back more to the human element where like people can relate to movies on an emotional level?
I think, you know, the success of Marvel is kind of a benchmark of how you can have all of those, you know, elements, but they're all still based in a hero's journey. There's still a fundamental human emotion to all of it. You know, you look at Black Panther, you look at, you know, even WandaVision. I mean, you know, again, they have superhuman strength and they have superhuman things, but they still have human issues and human problems and human, you know. So I think, you know, that's clearly a benchmark, and they've done okay. I think they're going to do just fine. And I think others are trying to kind of emulate that. I think you know, DC has a real challenge to try to keep that. You know, I think when you go too heavy on the CGI and too much action, then all of a sudden you do have a particular audience, but your audience is not as large in scale or in the international thing as, say, a Marvel story. So I think, you know, still, I think it can. You're right, it can get away from it, but I think at the end of the day, you know, audiences really kind of pick up on what they need and what they want, you know. And I think if you are ringing true, I think you'll find it's a great quote that Larry Moss, another one of my teachers that I recommend, and has a great book on Amazon, which is Larry Moss's book is called Intent to Live. And then he purports that we human beings don't do anything without an intention, whether it's deeply subconscious or overtly very conscious. And once we start to analyze our own individual intentions, and we find certain things are very, very, truthfulness is very, you know, stems in from being a human being. So I feel like if we can kind of ring true on some of those human elements, that's universal. You know, our emotions are universal. I focus on, you know, each week I focus on one particular emotion with my students, and this week the emotion is hope, my other favorite four-letter word, other than next, and then the other one. And so, you know, emotion creates reality. If the things you're creating have an emotional underlying truth, that will be universal. It will be felt. It will be impactful. I think when I think people are now, you know, because they've burned through hundreds of hours of content. For example, I did Spencer Confidential on Netflix, and the movie's only 90 minutes long, but over 400 hours have been watched on one particular movie. Over 100 million households for a 90-minute movie.
Unbelievable.
Now, lucky and unlucky for us. Lucky for us, we dropped, you know, right when COVID hit. We just happened to be on your top 10 queue, you know, what the first few weeks that the entire world went indoors, you know. So that and the other movie I did called The Banker for Apple TV, we both dropped around, you know, in March and April, where it was like, you're indoors, why not watch this, you know, deeply interesting and compelling movie? But, you know, Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg create stories. If you look at it, there's a trilogy. If you look at Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon, and Patriots Day, and I'll even extend that into Spencer Confidential, is they tell stories of normal human beings being put into high stress situations. You know, the people that are on the rig, the police in Boston. Do we shut down the city? Do we ground the planes? Do we close off the trains? Do we not bridges? Do we close off anyone from getting outside of Boston? And the cost of doing that. And because they made that decision, against, their fear and worry about everything. They were able to catch those terrorists who had bombs in the car that were going to take it to New York, and they had a GPS program to Times Square. So had they not had the fortitude and the real leadership to do something at a crucial moment, sound familiar? Real leadership to do a crucial moment of shutting things down, at not worrying about what your legacy is or the economy or what people are going to say, really making a real leadership decision at a crucial moment, they were able to stop those terrorists from doing further harm and killing other people. Wow. And so, and then even Spencer Confidential, he goes against all conventional wisdom in order to back up the little guy, to do the right thing at potentially his own peril. And so Peter stays away from the kind of the Marvel. He's been offered all those kinds of films. He stays away from them because he wants to tell human stories of human beings who are frail and sometimes don't make the best decision. There was a man that had to make a decision about cutting off the oil at the Deepwater Horizon. If he just cut that off, there wouldn't have been an environmental spill. People wouldn't have died. So a normal human being trained had to make a life and death decision. Lone survivor. They're dropped in Afghanistan. There's no way out. They have to find their way out. So it's like, what that does is it brings out all the good and the bad in each of us. That's an interesting, compelling story. And it's not somebody with superhuman strength. It's a normal human being put in a very life or death situation. What do you do?
And
do you fail or do you succeed? Every man, do you fail or succeed? So for me, it's like, I found my director collaborator, hopefully for my entire career. I constantly want to keep working with Peter Berg because he wants to tell those kinds of stories. And I'm a guy that can easily mold and fit into various of these stories. So it's a simpatico.
And Peter Berg, wasn't he an actor in his own right before he became a director?
Yes, he was. He was on Chicago Hope.
Oh, that's
wonderful
right.
actor.
And he became actually a very well-respected director in the past decade.
Absolutely.
What are some of the projects that he's done off the top of your head?
Friday Night Lights, for example, would be like, yes. And he's produced shows like he produced Ballers. He produces, but in terms of directing, produced Leftovers. I mean, he's, he is did Mile 22, which was on Netflix as well. I mean, he's an amazing, again, another prototype for me, a wonderful father and a creative director. And I like working with actors who direct because we do have a kind of a shorthand. They understand kind of how we work. So I've been very fortunate that I've worked with a lot of directors that were former actors that really have a way in which to communicate. We can communicate together.
I didn't realize that he did Leftovers, which was shot in Texas.
Oh yeah,
shot
absolutely.
in Lockhart, Texas, second
That's
season.
correct.
That is.
And Friday Night Lights. I mean, hello.
Oh, I know.
That was the iconic. I mean, if you lived there, you lived it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You had mentioned earlier when you were talking about Jennifer Garner, when you were walking the red carpet, nobody approached you until she actually approached you. Do you feel like a lot of times people have a hard time separating you from the roles that you play because you are so convincing and so dive deep into these roles? Yeah,
and there was a time where I was like, my ego was a little hurt by it because I was like, no one's paying attention to me, no one recognizes me, And then I was like, no, this is great. This is really great. Like, it's not about your ego. It's about you're doing a really good job because they can't tell the difference between you and these characters.
Exactly.
And it's like, you don't want to be that guy that go, oh, that's the guy that does this. Like I know Jeremy Piven's trying to do something else, but he's always going to be Ari. And we want that. And we're going to keep doing that as much as he wants to try to be someone else. And now, now he's caught up in Me Too, so there's that. But my point, but he was like that all along. Just everybody started to figure that out. I went to high school with him, so I know.
Oh, you did?
But my point is this. But my point is that I now look at it as a huge asset that people don't recognize me. I kind of like it. And then they're like, oh my God. Like, when they see my demo, they go on IMDb, they're like, and should have been a pilot and this, oh, no, it's like, you're cheating on your wife with fast food from SWAT, or you should have been a pilot and, and Catch Me If You Can, or, whatever, or you're the first guy that gets the screwdriver in the head in Speed,
Oh.
So it's like, when you put it all together in a reel, that's when people kind of figure it out. And I really like that now. You know what I mean? It's funny. That's why my show is really kind of all about is like, between somebody and nobody is this guy.
Is that guy.
So that guy, so it's you're that guy. I don't know what I know you from. It's like, yes, I'm not your son's soccer coach. I'm not your banker. You know what I mean? Like, I was not in your fraternity.
Oh,
no, I'm not your son's teacher. It's like, no, it was not your coach. Yeah, it's like it's really kind of like, and so then they're like, I kind of dig this anonymity right now. I just kind of, and then at a certain point that'll go away. There'll be something, and then I'll go, God, I wish I could just go to the store and nobody bothered. But I do like the idea that no one, because I remember my kids were doing Taekwondo in LA, and Heidi Klum and Steele would have their like busload of kids do the same Taekwondo, and literally the paparazzi with these they would stop traffic in the middle of Wilshire Boulevard to get pictures of their kids going to soccer. And I go, oh man, to going to Taekwondo. And I'm like, oh, I am so glad that I don't have that life, that I don't, you know what I mean? My really super famous actor friends go to the grocery store when their TV shows are on, because if they're a fan of the show, they're watching. So that's a good time to go.
No way.
Oh yeah. If you want to see a whole bunch of famous people in LA, go to, unfortunately now Cinerama Dome is going to be closed. But my secret thing was we would always go to Cinerama Dome during the daytime for any movie, and you would see tons of movie stars, because they would go during the day when no one would go, because, and they would wait for the movie to be out for a little while. And so, I sat down and watched 12 Years a Slave with Chris Rock, like he and I, and I'm like looking at each other like, yeah, dude, please don't kill me, man. I was like, the end of this thing, I know this is a powerful movie. We sat there for like 10 minutes after the movie and just had to talk.
Oh my
we were just
God.
shocked. So yeah, so there's like, there's and most of my famous friends have very funny ways to kind of like do stuff. They do,
To like
disguises.
dodge.
Oh, they do disguises and like fake mustaches that they held from TV shows and wigs, and it's
Oh
fun.
my gosh, that is.
And when I've gone out with them and done stuff, like Colin Farrell and I used to have a great time just going to all kinds of fun places when we were doing SWAT.
Oh my gosh, like with a mustache and a hat and sunglasses.
Oh yeah, he kept the mustaches on, but then we'd go to a bar and they thought like we'd pull up in a car, like a car, not a limo, but like, they thought we were like narcs, like he just wanted to go to a bar in LA you could smoke. And I knew these places in like Echo Park that like, were like total gangbanger hangouts, but that he wanted to go where he could have a smoke and drink inside at the bar. I was like, I know a couple places. So we'd roll in and no one would talk to us and no one recognized him, because they thought we're like cops, you know what I mean? Like, because we can smoke in here.
Stay away, yeah.
Yeah. They're like, oh, these guys are narcs, these guys are feds or something, like it's kind of fun.
Oh
So,
my
yeah.
gosh, that is crazy.
Yeah.
When you're talking about playing all sorts of historical characters, and what type of character development do you do before? Do you do research? Do you do historical research? Do you look back in archives especially if you're playing people that are known rather than a random person?
Yeah, I think, I prepare the audition as if I've already got the job. So
Interesting.
If I have the time,
Interesting.
so for me, it's like the audition really is the job, or the exhibition is really the job, as I like to call it now. And so, you perform how you prepare. So I try to, prepare as best I can. But, the hard part is, for example, like now it's Wednesday. I know by 12 o'clock on Friday, I have to figure out all these words and create this human being. So I may, depending on my time, I may work on the words. I'll print them out, I'll tape them up, and I'll just start to work. If I'm sitting, I'll sit down, and every once in a while throughout the day, I'll come back and I'll check in, or I'll grab the sides with my friend Michael Beach does this as well. And so does Matthew McConaughey. He talked about how he prepares. He'll pick the material up and drop it many different times during the day under different mindsets. And so that's a best way to kind of stay loose and flow with it. If it's a historical character, like I just recently did some historical characters, I kind of went online and went on YouTube and watched some video and some audio on people and try to get as much information as I can. So that's kind of, what I do.
So you actually would.
It all depends on time, so I prepare as much as I can for the audition. And then when I get the job, then I go back and I start to look at what I need to do between now and when I shoot. Like I know I have another gig at the end of May that is based on a book. I'll probably, between now and the end of May, find time to read the book to see if my character's in that book, or at least get a better understanding of that story or what the base of that story is. That makes sense?
Yes, absolutely. So for the audition, do you worry about, I think a lot of times actors get hung up on words. So for the audition, do you worry about, oh my gosh, I said an A instead
I used to, but I think when I did Tim Phillips' book, Audition for Your Career, Not the Job, available on Amazon. I don't get any money from it. I just love this man. And he taught me a great deal, and that's why I'm working so much. It's about the life. It's not about the words. It's about the emotional underpinnings of what's happening. I just do drills. I do it in different voices. I sometimes do an Irish accent if I'm doing the words, or I'm doing it as a New Yorker. Sometimes I'm just going to kind of change it, or I do it as a sitcom style. I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter. But find ways in which to get these words into your body, and then bring that thing to life. So I do various different things. I do backwards to forwards with the lines. I have all different kinds of techniques in memorizing lines. But it's not really about memorizing lines. It's about, and that's what McConaughey has a great thing out right now about how it's not, how do you memorize a line? There's no memorizing of lines. It's a matter of figuring out who the person is and what's happening in here. What do they need? What do they want? What's being said to them or done to them that's holding them back from getting what they want. So once you really kind of learn how to, that's why I think I like techniques like Tim's of Sherlock Holmesing, and don't make rash decisions. Let the words and the thing kind of come to you,
Organically.
And also organically. And I look at my script, I'll put my notes down, or sometimes I had an audition recently where it was very little dialogue and it had lots of action. So I put together an action list, step off the elevator, it's awfully quiet, stop, you're spooked. Well, what the hell? Nothing, silent. Hello? It's one of my lines. I feel somebody's following me in a parking lot, and it goes all the way until I get shot at the end, So I create an action list. So I may not have a lot of dialogue because film and television is a visual medium. It's constantly a show and tell. What are you showing? What are you telling? And so, it's a matter of just trying to, find ways to immerse yourself into this world, bend yourself to the character.
Well, you just said something interesting too. You said, don't commit it to your mind, commit the words to your body. That's
right. Yeah. Yeah. Because your body has, the brain is amazing. We only use 10% of it. And so, I work surprisingly, looking at me, I work very physically. I'll get up and I'll run around the block. I'll walk around the block, or I'll do it while I'm hitting the punching bag. I'll have it on the bag and do that kind of stuff. I'll do various different things to, I'll jump around, like I'll sit quietly and just stare out on the wall with the words. I'll just work my way through it. That's what I'm going to have to do in the next 48 hours.
So wait, you have put words printed out on a punching bag, and then you've been hitting the punching bag, watching the words.
Yeah,
and you
I do that, or I tape them up while I'm shaving,
And you've
run the lines while I'm shaving, walking. So, McConaughey and I are on the same page, and I'm just happy that I've been doing this the whole time too. But it was nice for him to kind of share with people is that various times throughout the day, he said even on a Saturday night when he's got his little buzz going on, he'll run through the lines where he's a little buzzed. You know what I mean? So he's checking in with the character at the various different emotional stages of kind of where he's at. So he's taking a bird's eye view of it from different times of the day. I do the same thing. For me lately, rather than sitting in my bed or sitting in a chair and kind of just try to regurgitate words, I put them up and I run them. I'm rehearsing in the space that I'm going to be shooting. Like I think this character is probably going to be seated. So I will print the words out. I may blow them up and just tape them on the wall. And then every once in a while throughout the day, I'll stop. I'm about to teach the next half hour or so. And so I'll stop and I'll go have dinner or breakfast and go look, or I'll go run and come back. I'll do it throughout the day to kind of just work it. Or as my friend Michael Beach would say, he's constantly has a script in his pocket. So he goes to the gas station, he pulls out a script. He goes to the post office, he pulls out a script. He stands in line at the bank, he pulls out a script. He works on his gym. Yeah. So the idea is that you're constantly in flow.
Constantly in flow. Do you
now, mind you, I have sometimes 3 and 6 a week.
I was about to say, to be able to, like, you're juggling all these balls in the air at one time. So
yes.
How do you work on, it's almost like you have a split personality to be working on 5 or 6
Very much
personalities at the same time.
Correct. I prioritize them by deadline. Like, for example, this deadline is Friday at 1:00. I'll probably shoot it tomorrow, a day before.
Really?
Because in my world, I may have by the end of the day, I may have another one, and then all of a sudden now I have 2, and I have to figure out. So I try to turn them around, 24 to 48 hours. This one's 48 hours, so.
As an everyman, because I know it's sometimes a little bit different, ladies that are actresses as opposed to men, do you allow, when you audition your wardrobe, to add and flavor the character, or as an everyman, do you worry about that at all? Yeah,
I think, I wouldn't say that I kind of go so far as a costume. I have a sense of costume. But then there's times where I go, it's required. I have army fatigues. I have a lab coat. I wear a suit. So I think a sense of character that if it's the cop, I don't necessarily have the blue. I do have a cop shirt, but the basic blue is fine. When it's a cowboy, I don't have to wear the chaps or the 10-gallon hat. You know what I mean? Like the plaid shirt and jeans are just fine in
like
my boots.
A hint of it.
Yeah, it's for me. It's really it's a costume for me. What helps me get into character? I had a situation where I bought the lab coat because I was getting a lot of commercial auditions, and I thought it's just easier to have it, and then
sure.
and then I bring it to one live audition at Warner Brothers, and the casting director was so rude to me.
What?
Well, I wore the thing, and she goes, we have a costume designer. You don't have to try so hard. And I go,
wow.
And I go, this isn't about you.
And then what did she say?
I don't think I've seen her ever since.
Wow, no, that's great.
But what she didn't know was, before I got there at Warner Bros., I went to a 7-Eleven. I went to a Walgreens to get some water, so I had water before I got to my audition to keep myself hydrated.
Right.
And a woman stopped me on my way to getting water and asked me a question about over-the-counter drugs. Because I was wearing the lab coat. Do you see my thing? It's for me. It was to help me. And I explained to her, I said, well, the irony is someone just asked me for medical advice because I wore this thing. So do you see, it made me feel like I'm a doctor.
Right.
And I didn't tell her, and you just made me feel awful. And that,
wow.
And so now we have to, now we're going to work together. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just, how much do you really understand? Here you are, a cast, how much do you really understand the actor's process? You're reading it as me being desperate and trying to force a vision on you. I'm doing it because a woman stopped me in the counter asking me for medical advice and made me feel like a doctor. That's why I'm doing it. So do you see, like, so, and even this comes up a lot with self-tapes now, people, actors listening to casting directors, no props, no costumes, or I say no fun. Just take all the joy and the fun out of it. No character. You know what I mean?
Wow.
People go too far, for example. So, I mean, I have a phrase of, when it comes to props, use the prop, use it, lose it, don't abuse it.
Got it.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm not on the phone, but I'm holding the phone here. You see how, or doing a cocktail party, you just hold the glass there and you never drink from it. Like, that's abuse of prop. So for those who are doing that, don't do that.
Well, it's Jimmy Stewart. I remember him saying that if you put him in the shoes of the actor, of the character, then he was able to better understand it for himself. And then
that used to be my thing too. It's like I had I'm a shoe person. So I used to have like 40 pairs of shoes. Like that character would wear that shoe. Now because it's self-tapes, like it's about the tie.
That has no shoes.
That's the tie. That's the tie that guy would wear. So because you don't see the shoes only until you get to the full body shot. But the tie definitely tells you who that guy is, you know?
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Do you think that you personally, do you feel like you, and maybe it's across the board, maybe it's even 50-50, do you feel like you book more in comedy or more in drama?
I'm lucky. I straddle between the two.
Really?
I was stuck in drama world for a good while because it was like I kept doing these kind of dramas. And thankfully for me, Danny McBride helped me to pull out and be more in comedies because I think perception is everything. And I think people, like, if they see and perceive you in a certain way, you know, this may sound a little bit tough. Cast director's job is to cast you, you know, to typecast you for their purposes. It helps you for their exhibition, you know. But that has nothing to do with me. You know, I'm supposed to be all different kinds of people. Now, I found it when there was a time in LA when I was I did this New York cop in this play that everybody saw. And of course I was on NYPD Blue. And of course, you know, but then one cast director would always bring me in for that cop and never saw me any other way. And then finally it's like there's the young dad, and I'm the young dad at the time. And they were like, my agent had to work hard to convince them, you know, he's dead, he's got a kid. And they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, he's a little New York. And I was like, no, he's not at all. So it's very interesting how, particularly in larger markets like Los Angeles, there's so many people. So I understand how they need to put you in a certain particular category because this person does this. And the same thing with LA is there are people that just do that lawyer guy. There's people that just do this. You know, I have enough people that just do that, as opposed to when I was working when I opened up the South, I was able to do every type of role. All of a sudden, it was not about, they wanted just a good actor that could work locally to save money. And they got a tax. So, you know, you got LA caliber talent at local tax credit prices, you know, and I was willing to play along because the amount of work, I think I generated like 60 jobs in the time period.
That's crazy.
And not just like little ones. It's like Jurassic World and Dallas Buyers Club and Trumbo. And so it kind of, I felt there was a little bit of a compromise that I made in order to work more consistently. I had to kind of come now that I'm here and where I'm at, you know, I don't really leave unless it's a certain amount of money because it doesn't kind of make sense, or that role.
Sure.
I've done that role before, and that's why you're calling. So give me another good reason to do the same role that I did in this other movie with a different, you know what I mean? Like what am I trying to do? Am I duplicating what's already been done, or am I doing something different? You'll find that some of the, actors that have been doing it for a long period of time, they end up doing the same roles because the audiences still want to see them doing those things. But I think you look at McConaughey's career, for example, it's like he could have done the romantic comedies all day long and we still would have watched. But at a certain point, he decided he wanted to work in a much higher level and to do things that were more important. And that whole run that he had from Mud all the way to Interstellar, I've never seen the McConaissance. I've never seen anything like that. Not with Pacino, not with De Niro, not with Daniel Day-Lewis, not with the great ones, the Jimmy Stewarts. Never that many amazing kind of roles in such a short period of time, And that included True Detective. That included
True Detective,
Dallas Buyers Club. That included Wolf of Wall Street. So it's like there's so I mean that's a good, I like to do things different. I look at the role, and then the money, and then the situation, and then the schedule. The role is the thing.
Who are some of the great actors that you think are of our generation? Like you just mentioned, is McConaughey, DiCaprio.
Those and DiCaprio that no one can do unraveled, psychically, unraveled like Leo DiCaprio. No one can beat that. Like he's just amazing. I just had, short scene with him for Catch Me If You Can, but I'm enamored with his work and always have been. For me, my go-tos now are Daniel Day-Lewis. I look at actors of work that I strive to do. There are a lot of actors work I go, I could do that. Then there's actors work I go, I can't do that, but I want to figure out how. Do you know what I mean?
And
I look at Joaquin.
DiCaprio
I look at
example of that.
Joaquin Phoenix. I look at Daniel Day-Lewis. I look at Gary Oldman. I mean,
Gary Oldman,
look at the range of Gary Oldman. Like, let's just think about that for a second, And I go, I want to figure out how I can do that. Christian Bale right now is on my short list. So it's like Joaquin Phoenix, Christian Bale. In terms of actresses, I mean, Charlize Theron, Meryl Streep, of course, Amy Adams. There's God, what's the other one? Oh God, there's so many people whose work I watch and I go, I can't do that, but I really want to figure out how. And those are the ones that are those are the ones where the bar is just so set so high that I'll eat up an entire lifetime probably striving for that. And that's fine with me.
Well, it's not the goal,
because
it's the
there's a
process,
lot of people where I go, I can do that. I'm capable of doing that right now, or with this change, or I can do that. But then there's somewhere I go, I can't do that.
Now, James, you've mentioned that you teach
Yes.
so many students. So
Yeah.
if people wanted to, take classes from you via
Yeah.
Zoom all over the world, and also how they would follow your social media, follow your career, and get a hold
Absolutely.
of you, tell us
I
of that.
I have an open Facebook page. My friends are filled up, but it's called James Dumont's On-Camera Workouts on Zoom. You can find the page. We have about 750 people on there. I do sessions on Monday nights. I do a actor writer lab. Tuesday nights, Wednesday day. Once I'm done here, I I have my lunch crunch, and then Wednesday night I do a lab, which is basically focusing in on the core work that I do in terms of the 4 different techniques that I have to kind of work on the self tapes and on-camera auditions or auditions in general. And then Thursday nights I teach as well. And then Friday, I do a Q&A. I bring in an actor, and I do an actor-to-actor Q&A for charity. And I've raised almost $13,000 every Friday.
Really?
Every Friday I'll have a guest for a couple hours, and we just talk actor-to-actor process. And so all of that can be found at James Dumont's On-Camera Workouts on Zoom, which is on Facebook. We're on Instagram, which is On-Camera Workouts is our tag on Instagram. I'm working on our website as we speak, and it'll be oncameraworkouts.com, .net, all those .biz, all that. And then in terms of just, please follow me on Instagram. It's all my name, lowercase. It's James Dumont, Dumont, and it's a picture of me in my yellow tracksuit from Spencer Confidential. I put a lot of stuff up, but there's a lot of great stuff on our Instagram of On-Camera Workouts. I've been putting videos up that are sections for my class. I recommend everybody just to come observe. Just to observe class, because I think it's you'll get a better feel and understanding of kind of how I work and what it entails. And then once you feel confident and ready to kind of come and participate, I give you material and you shoot the audition, you upload it, we watch playback and we analyze, we do playback and feedback. And tons of my students are working. My people are constantly working, and it's extremely fulfilling for me. I found the whole new thing to do, bring out qualities and things that I just never thought were possible at all. I had a whole negative, derogatory viewpoint of teaching, but now it gets me up in the morning, and it's really affected my work in a really, really strong way. Like now, what's great is I walk the walk and talk the talk. I'm not trying to fill a class. I make a full-time living as an actor, so. My classes are really, really small. They're limited to 10 people, 12 participants sometimes. My classes in the labs are only 6 people. We work for 3 hours on 3 scenes. So it's anybody wants to do a really deep dive and understand, especially next month, we're going to be learning how to dissect material, which is the first way to start. I call that core 1 work. But yeah, it's pretty quite exciting. I found COVID has turned out to be probably the most, and a lot of people, we call it the tribe, the On-Camera Workout tribe. A lot, this helped a lot of people get through a very, very tough time.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it's been, and that's why I love the Friday Q&As. It's a great way to give back, and we drink and I swear, and sometimes we go Facebook Live, but it's great. And our guest this week is Billy Holden, who is the SAG vice president. He'll be talking about the SAG issues in terms of COVID stuff. I've had Ed Asner on. I've had Michael Chiklis. So I've had Golden Globe and Emmy winning actors on there. I'll be bringing some casting assistants in to talk about the things that they're seeing when they're looking at self-tapes. And so, but each one's for a charity. So we've raised almost $13,000 for 50 different charities that run the gamut. And so it's a way of kind of like giving back.
Oh.
So it's like sharing knowledge, having a few drinks and laughs, and hearing an actor's journey. I think really I'm interested in talking about the actor's journey and their process because, and I've had, amazing guests that will blow people's minds. And my students are really getting 50 different perspectives on how one builds their career.
That's amazing. And James, it's so funny because I know you have a time constraint today. We never got to you've been such an amazing guest and so giving to everybody. We never got to any of his items that I put in the queue, you guys. So James, you got to come back in the next couple of weeks so we can discuss.
I'm fine with all of that.
Awesome.
Line them all up.
Get
Larry Moss's book and Tim's, and let's do the movies. Let's talk the movies.
Yeah, because we've got tons of
I would
movies.
love to talk those. I would love to talk about all those characters because I think it's a really great. I think for me, it's like I love when we're able to talk the process of things. I love the actor's process. It's an interesting and fascinating one. And I'm working at a pretty high level with people on film and television. And it's exciting to kind of share that. And so I loved all the things that we talked about today. But yeah, let's talk about these movies because there's interesting characters. I have stories about almost all of them.
And we
that
love
I think
behind
people
the
be
scenes
interested.
too.
Oh, all that stuff. So we will definitely. It's not goodbye. We'll see you very soon. And yeah, and tell me when. We'll make it happen.
Oh, awesome, you guys. I'm so excited. And
Absolutely.
oh, yes. And then we have a comment. Albert L. Ortega says you were definitely going to bring him on Geeking Out, which is usually on Fridays. So yes, we will make all this happen. You guys,
Done.
thank you. Thank you, James, so much for spending
Absolutely.
time with us. And we will see you again. And we're saying goodbye to James. And then you guys stay with me because we're going to be just seeing what's going on right here in the morning. Didn't we have an awesome, awesome time with actor James Dumont? It was amazing. I feel like, we learned so